Hi, my name's Ztarli, and in this video I'll be drawing a Patreon reward for Zemper. We have actually combined a couple of their rewards into one picture, so I will be drawing a full body picture for Zemper in this video. Now, Zemper has been my one and only Patreon for some time now, so I really wanted to go the extra mile with this picture to show my thanks for them supporting me basically as long as I've had the Patreon. So to start with, I'm actually going to design the dragon a little bit first, as they didn't have any full body pictures of their dragon, and they didn't have like a fully fleshed idea of the dragon yet. So to start with, I'm just doing this rough sketch of it just in a static pose so that I can get the idea down and the colors down for the dragon before moving on to the posed dragon, which will include a fully colored background. Now, there were some elements that actually evolved along the way, so some of the things I designed in this original little colored sketch actually changed as I was doing the full picture, as we were doing, like I was doing more detailed things and spoke back and forth with Zemper to make sure that the drawing was to their liking and that they were really happy with the result before I moved on to the next part of the drawing. Now, this drawing did actually take me quite a long time, much longer than I'd originally planned. It actually took me 12 hours to do the whole thing, but that does include this planning process at the start, which I decided to do for my own benefit. So I don't really count this part of the picture. The other reason it took me so long is I super struggled with drawing the joints of the wings to the back of the dragon. I always struggle with that, but you know what? I'm not going to get any better unless I continue to draw it. So rather than taking a wussy way out and just changing the angle of the dragon, I just spent a long time working on it until I felt that it was right. And now just sketching up some pose ideas for Zemper to look at and decide on before moving on to the full picture. So if I'm doing a full colored picture with background, I like to give them a couple of options before deciding on a pose. If it was a very strictly timed picture, like they only wanted me to spend 4 hours on it or something like that, I probably would just go straight into the picture. But because I wanted to thank Zemper for supporting me, and they had supported me for a while, I wanted to make sure I was drawing what they liked rather than just picking my own pose and putting things the way I wanted them. I wanted them to be the way Zemper wanted them. I also continue to spend more time on the design of the dragon at this point, and I did actually spend 2 hours on just this little dragon here. But again, this was my own decision, and I was actually having lots of fun with it, mixing all the colors in together. And I do really love designing dragons and like just creating things. So I probably spent too long doing this than I should have, but I was having lots of fun, and as I said, I don't really count this. I was doing this as part of the actual picture. I was doing this because I wanted to, and I wanted to have like a full body picture of the dragon to reference off when I was drawing the full picture. I'd actually kind of love to return to this picture and add the changes we made during the actual drawing of the full picture, because there were some changes we made, like instead of having this smoother snake scaled belly, we ended up having a armored plating one, so with overlapping scales. And we did change the design of the frill that goes all along the spine of the dragon as well. And I don't know, I just had fun drawing this. So if I ever get the chance, or if I've got some spare time, I might return to this picture and just add the changes we made, so that Zemper has a full reference picture if they want to use it. Well, and if they would like me to do that, I wouldn't mind doing that. So now moving on to a more detailed sketch of the dragon. So Zemper has chosen which of the designs they liked better. So I'm doing a more detailed sketch in the caving setting that they'd chosen, one this way and the other facing the other way, and they did actually choose this particular one that I'm sketching first. And I also did a couple of different sort of mood colouring, so I did a daytime and a sunset sort of scene for them to choose from to decide which kind of tone they liked better for the full picture. I do use this cave setting that I draw in this SketchUp. I use as the base for the actual background, so this isn't really wasted time, as I am going to use this as the base of the background and just add more onto it later. So now Zemper has chosen which sketch they liked best and which tone they like best, it's time to get into the picture in earnest. I am going to start with the background as I normally do. If I'm doing a fully background picture, I like to start with at least roughing up a background before I go and colour the character, so I have an idea of what surrounding colours there are that will be integrated into the dragon, and I can try and make sure that the lighting and the shading comes from the correct directions, as I've already got the background idea down and in place. Now, because this picture took me so long, it does mean this is a rather long video, and I don't have a great deal to talk about during the majority of this video, so I'll just be talking during the key parts of the video. So obviously I've just discussed what I'm doing with the background, and I'll probably chime in again when I start colouring the actual dragon itself, and again near the end of the video. I will make sure I've set chapters up, so if you want to see specific parts, then you can just use the chapter options to jump to the parts you're more interested in, so you don't have to sit through the whole 25 minutes just to find the part you wanted to look at. That being said, enjoy listening to this calming music until I decide to speak up again, as said, probably when I start colouring the dragon itself. Enjoy. So I'm done with the background for now, and I'm now going to start colouring the dragon itself. So I've just got a base colour down. This is not going to be the final colour of the dragon, it's just a base so I can get the shading down, and I'm actually just going to paint directly onto the layer rather than creating a separate shadow and light layer. I do actually find this process more enjoyable. Sometimes it can just be a bit problematic if I decide to change the shadow colour halfway through or something like that. It means I have to repaint over the whole thing instead of just doing an adjustment to the shadow layer. But as I said, I do enjoy doing it this way better, and I do find when I'm trying to define muscles, it's easier for me to be painting on the one layer, so I can freely mix in the colours to try and get the muscle shapes correct. And as I said earlier in the video, I do really struggle with this part, trying to get these muscles in the right position. It took me a while to realise I actually had the joints way too close together, and it wasn't until I moved them further apart and put the sort of wedge shape in between them that I actually started to like the picture a bit more, as it was starting to become more correct in its muscle structure. There's a bit of changing of position and changing things around, changing the way the dragon's actually sitting, but in the end we change it back to this pose, and I just spend a bit more time on the muscles and the shoulders of the dragon. I'm just roughing in the frill or the spine spikes, or whatever you want to call them, along the middle of the dragon. We actually do decide to change these later on, so this is just what it was originally in the original design, but after discussing the design with Zemper again, we do decide to change this. So these spines are not going to stay, they are going to become quite different to how they're looking at the moment. I'm also now attempting to get the wing structure correct. Wings are another thing that I can struggle with. I do find it's very helpful to use my own arm and hands as reference, imagining that my finger bones are extended out to make the wing bones, and obviously the thumb is the claw of the dragon. I do find that quite helpful, and looking at references of bats and things like that. I always used to really struggle with wings, but because I'm quite stubborn and I force myself to keep drawing the same thing, and I often choose poses that are difficult for myself to try and improve. I have actually gotten much better at wings, and I'm actually in a much happier position with drawing wings altogether. And I actually find them quite enjoyable when I do finally get the structure down correctly, and shading them is kind of fun, and I like the end result as well. So it's kind of just evidence that my stubbornness and my I guess ability to not give up on something, like I'll just keep doing it until I get it right, does eventually work, even if it's kind of almost akin to torture sometimes. I'm doing it for my own good, and you know, there's still things I enjoy, even if I'm finding it like a struggle to get something right. It is worth it in the end, and I'm usually happy at the end. So yeah, I just keep at it until I'm happy with it. And I am happy with this picture at the end of the video. Kind of like, I'm quite surprised at how good it turned out. I especially like how the head of this dragon turned out. And although I kind of very sick of looking at those shoulder joints, I do think it looks quite good, and that the muscle shading on it's quite nice and pleasing to look at once I do finish the whole thing up. So as you can see now, I'm now replacing those spikes, so they are going to be more like little fish fins all along the body of the dragon, which I thought was actually kind of cool and unique. It's something I haven't really seen on a dragon before, and they were fun to do. And I did do, it's not really very noticeable, but later on you'll see I do a little bit of light coming through them because they would be semi-transparent, and I do think it's kind of a unique idea. So Zemper came up with that on their own. They just made the suggestion and I drew it in, so I think it's a really cool idea. That's pretty much all I have to say about the painting part of the dragon. The next couple of minutes at least are just going to be me painting over and over and over again, which is how I normally like to color. So I'll just put different colors down, and I'll teardrop the color next to it and paint over and over and over again, mixing the colors in and using the blur tool to make smoother transitions. So that's basically what I'll be in real time, what I did for hours on end, but for those watching this video with the sped up time, it's probably gonna be for, what have I got left, another 10 minutes, so probably the next 7 minutes will just be that, and then near the end of the video there's some adjustments to the background, and obviously I'll be adding the scales in as well, so I'll probably chime in again once I start adding the scales to the dragon. Well, actually, I started doing the scales a lot earlier than I thought I did, so I guess I spent a lot longer doing the scales than I'd originally thought I had. But actually, I enjoy doing scales, so I was having lots of fun doing this. So to begin with, you can see I'm making the adjustment to the belly scales. They are now overlapping scales instead of being the snake-like belly scales that are just next to each other. We have decided on like mostly these little round scales that are kind of spaced apart, and then along the ridge of the spine we've got these larger, longer sort of more plated scales, kind of like what you'd see on a crocodile. So that's what we decided to go on, and now I just have to cover the entire dragon in scales, which again, as I said, I quite enjoy doing, and I didn't think I spent that long doing the scales, but looking back on the video, I guess I did, but because I was enjoying myself, it didn't really feel like an effort. And there's specific points in doing scales that I super duper enjoy. I really like doing the little bit of light in between the scales, just in certain places, just to highlight like a ridge, or where there'd be, you know, like along the neck where the light will be hitting certain parts. For some reason, I just really like that little pop it gives, and I really enjoy adding that to the dragon's skin when I'm doing it. I did struggle with the scales around the muscles here, because obviously because the muscles are quite large and they're not flat, I'd had to think about how the scales would actually curve and sort of be placed along these bulging muscles. I don't think I got it perfect. It's certainly not like, it's not 100% accurate to how it would look, but I did think I did a pretty decent job in following the curvature of the body whilst placing the scales on the dragon. I'm also mixing in lots of different colors here, so I've added a few more colors during the painting process. There's some reds mixed in with blues and greens. Zemper said they wanted to see if I could mix in some colors that I used in my how to draw scales tutorials, so that's why this did end up being a lot greener than the original planning, as I was mixing in a lot more colors than I'd originally planned to. But it's really fun to experiment with different colors, and I do again like doing the scales different colors in different areas, just as different bits of lights hit it, or maybe they're a bit shimmery, so the scales appear different in different areas. Now shading the wings a bit more, giving them a bit more definition, defining those knuckle bones, which is essentially what those bends are. They are the knuckle bones in your hand, so when planning where the wings are going to bend, I always look at my finger and go, well, there's, you know, how many joints are there, and where would those joints be on a wing, and I add those knuckle joints in. Now I'm just colouring the eye. I do sort of colour this kind of twice. I colour it my normal way first, and then I decide to actually look up references on how eyes will look from the side. And I'm really pleased with how it ends up. I'm just a little sad that the dragon's face is a little bit small, so you can't really see a lot of detail in the face. But I did sort of really enjoy making this eye. I added in, I don't know if everyone's ever noticed, but when you see eyes from the side, you can actually see through it because it's like a glass orb with a flat color inside of it. So I put this little gap in between the color of the eye and where the edge of the eye is to make it look more realistic, and I think it looks really cool. So I'm going to try and make more realistic eyes in the future. So this was a fun experiment to do. I do a lot of repositioning of the eye and the shape around the eye. So I do spend quite a bit of time on this face, and as I said before, I'm really happy with how the head turned out. I'm just a little sad that because the head is sort of turned away and further away from you, that it is just a little bit small and you don't get as much detail. But I guess I still like the picture overall. I'm just adding in the little feather accent here. And I did make a bit of a mistake here because I had flipped all of my reference pictures to the other side of the page. I didn't realize that I was actually adding the accessory to the wrong side of the dragon, and it should actually be on the horn further away, and you wouldn't see it, it would be hidden. So when I finished this picture and showed it to Zemper, they pointed that out to me, and I quickly realized my mistake. So we actually end up flipping this entire image to face the other way so that you can actually still see the accessory, but it ends up on the correct horn. Accessory is really fun to draw, and I really enjoyed mixing those colors together. I think it's a really cute accessory. And then adding a final shadow layer to this. So I just put a shadow layer on top and erased away some areas so there was a bit more light and depth to this picture. I do a similar thing with the background before doing some more touch-ups with repainting the background as well. So I finished doing some touch up and repainting the background. So the last part of this is actually just copying parts of the dragon. So the forewing and the wing in the background, I copy and blur and then erase some parts back to make it more seamless so that there is a bit of focus to the picture. So and then the picture's finally finished. I hope you like it, Zemper. I really enjoyed doing this picture and I did learn a lot while doing it, and I had lots of fun. So thank you so much for asking me to do this picture. Well, thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I have Patreon as well if you'd like to support me. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!